The first time I saw her, I knew my life was over. She stood in the grand ceremonial chamber, her emerald green skin shimmering under the soft glow of the twin moons. Her violet eyes, sharp and piercing, scanned the gathering with disinterest. A crown of crystalline vines adorned her head, their iridescent sheen marking her as royalty. She was a princess of the Threxian Empire, and I was the poor human fool chosen to be her husband. I swallowed hard as the High Chancellor droned on about intergalactic unity, peace treaties, and the honor bestowed upon me. Honor. That was a funny way of putting it. I had been conscripted into the Earth Diplomatic Corps 2 years ago, a young scientist eager to prove himself in the vast cosmos. I had hoped for research opportunities, exploration, maybe even first contact with new species. Now, I was about to be shackled to a woman who looked like she would rather incinerate me than share her life. Her name was Princess Xyra. A warrior, a leader, and by all accounts, a ruthless strategist. She had fought in 3 wars, led countless missions, and was said to have a heart colder than the void of space. I was Daniel Carter, a biologist with a knack for getting into trouble. And apparently, the universe had decided that we were a perfect match. The moment the ceremony concluded, Xyra turned to me, her expression unreadable. "Come with me." I hesitated. "Where?" She shot me a glare. "Now." I followed her through the winding corridors of the Imperial Palace, my heart hammering. We finally stopped in a private chamber, where she turned on me with barely restrained fury. "Listen carefully, human," she hissed. "This marriage is political. I do not need, nor do I desire, a mate. You will keep out of my way, and I will stay out of yours. Do we understand each other?" I exhaled slowly. Loud and clear. "But maybe we should at least try to." "No." Her voice was like ice. "You are nothing to me. I have no intention of playing house with you." The door slammed shut behind her, leaving me alone in my new reality. The days that followed were an exercise in awkward avoidance. Xyra was true to her word, she treated me like an invisible entity. I was given a luxurious suite, served meals by attendants, and had full access to the palace, but I was nothing more than an accessory to an alliance neither of us had agreed to. At first, I tried to make conversation. Xyra ignored me. I attempted to ask about her culture, her people, the war she had fought. She either walked away or glared at me until I stopped talking. It was frustrating, humiliating even, but I was determined to find some meaning in this mess. One evening, as I wandered the palace gardens, I saw her practicing combat drills with a group of elite warriors. She was a blur of movement, her twin plasma blades cutting through the air with precision. Watching her fight was mesmerizing, deadly and graceful, like a storm given form. A part of me admired her. Another part feared her. One night, everything changed. The palace alarms blared, red lights flashing across the halls. I was jolted awake by the sound of explosions. Before I could make sense of what was happening, the door to my chamber burst open, and Xyra stormed in. "Get up," she ordered, tossing me a weapon. "We're under attack." "Attack? By who?" "Rebels." "Move." I barely had time to register the situation before she pulled me into the corridor. The air was thick with smoke, the scent of burning metal and ozone. Guards fought against a wave of insurgents, their weapons clashing in violent sparks. Xyra led the way, cutting down enemies with terrifying efficiency. I did my best to keep up, firing at anything that moved. "Why are they attacking?" I shouted over the chaos. "They oppose the treaty. They see our union as a betrayal." We turned a corner and were met with another group of rebels. One of them lunged at me. I barely managed to block his strike, my heart pounding. Before he could land another blow, Xyra intervened, her blade slicing through him in one swift motion. She grabbed my arm, her grip bruising. "Stay close." For the first time since we met, her voice carried something other than disdain. It carried urgency. Maybe even concern. We fought our way through the palace, taking cover where we could. At one point, we found ourselves cornered in a storage chamber. Xyra exhaled sharply, assessing our dwindling options. "We're not getting out of here alive if we keep running," I said. She narrowed her eyes. "Do you have a plan, human?" I nodded, pointing to the ventilation system. "If we can get to the control room, we can trigger a security lockdown. It might buy us time." Xyra studied me for a moment, then gave a sharp nod. "Fine. But if you slow me down, I will leave you behind." "Fair enough." We crawled through the ventilation shafts, maneuvering through the smoke-filled air until we reached the security hub. The room was guarded, but Xyra took them down with brutal efficiency. I rushed to the control panel, hacking into the system while she held the line. "Almost there," I muttered. "Just a few more." A sharp cry made me turn. Xyra staggered, a wound searing across her shoulder. Fury burned in her eyes as she fought through the pain. Without thinking, I grabbed one of the fallen enemy's weapons and fired, taking out the last attacker. She clutched her wound, looking at me with something resembling surprise. "You saved me." "Yeah, well, I figured I'd be a terrible husband if I let you die." A strange silence settled between us. Then, for the first time, she smirked. "Perhaps you're not entirely useless." The lockdown sequence activated, sealing the palace and forcing the rebels into retreat. The aftermath was grim, casualties littered the halls, and the air was thick with tension. But we had survived. That night, Xyra came to my chambers, her arm bandaged, her demeanor softer than before. "You fought well," she admitted. "Better than I expected." "Thanks. I think." She hesitated, then sat across from me. "Perhaps this arrangement is not as unbearable as I believed. You are still an inconvenience, but a useful one." I chuckled. "I'll take that as a compliment." She studied me for a long moment before nodding. "We will train together. If you are to remain by my side, you will not be weak." Something in her voice had changed. It was no longer just command, it was partnership. And maybe, just maybe, that was the start of something more. I had been forced into this marriage, but for the first time, I wondered if fate had a strange sense of humor. Because against all odds, I was beginning to see a future here. A future with her. And I wasn't sure I hated it.